If I was to ask anyone here what they could tell me about stingrays, I could almost guarantee that this would be the answer. Wasn't Steve Irwin killed by a stingray? This seems to be the most well-known fact about them. But did you also know that in the days and years following his death, stingrays have been washing up on our shores with their tails intentionally cut off? This killing of stingrays echoes the shark culls that occurred following the release of the movie Jaws. Both acts were driven by fear, because as humans, we fear the unknown. But what is unknown is the future survival of stingrays. Of the more than 200 species which occur worldwide, half are already listed as endangered or vulnerable to extinction, and the other half as data deficient, which just means we don't know enough about them in order to know if they're going okay. So why stingrays in the city? Well, as much as I'd love to tell you that I'm writing a thesis on a cocktail drinking stingray that's looking for love, I'm actually focusing on the relationship between urbanisation and coastal stingrays. These stingrays are facing a range of threats from human activities. In particular, losses to habitat and food sources have already seen widespread population declines. So what's the answer? Well, conservation. But it's hard to make decisions on how to protect a species if we don't know enough about them. And that's where my research comes in. In order to protect stingrays, I need to know more about them as a species and how they use the environment. And I can do this by tagging them and then following them around to see where they're going and what they're doing and what they're eating. Effectively, I need to spend a day in the life of a stingray. We also want to understand the full extent of the impact that we're having on them. And I can do this by testing the levels of nitrogen in their tissues. Nitrogen is a direct indicator of urban activities. Therefore, the higher the levels of nitrogen I find, the greater the impact I know is occurring. I also want to understand if the current conservation measures are effective. This involves looking at the legislation and protection, as well as assessing the local populations of stingrays over time to see how they might have changed while these measures have been in place. And then I'll be able to present to you the golden rulebook on how to protect stingrays. Unfortunately, I won't, because there's never going to be a one-size-fits-all approach to stingray conservation. But if I could help remove just one of those species off that unknown or data deficient list, well, to me, that would be ideal. Because in the words of a fellow shark conservationist, if we only save one animal, to that animal we've made a world of difference, and ultimately, a difference in the world.